We're here with part 2 of the 650 double pumper rebuild. This is going to be just checking all the parts, cleaning them, make sure all our passages are clean, and actually looking for places that might be bad. Something's wrong with a bowl or meter block or the main body. So here, we've already looked, last part 1, we realized we had the wrong secondary gasket in it. It should have been just like this one right here in the rear, and it had a total different one. It had a Holley that was made for a transfer tube for the accelerator pump. Now, we also had other problems. I don't know who rebuilt this carburetor, but they just done a terrible job. The primary metering plate had, or meter block rather, had 63 jets in it. Should have had 67s. The secondary had 67s. It should have had 76s. It had no power valve. Usually, generally speaking, you'll go 8 to 10 sizes up if it doesn't have a power valve or you block the power valve off. You'll jump up from whatever it normally calls for. Like this one, it called for, I think it would probably call for like 67, 68 for the rear, and then you go up 8 to 10 sizes from there when you block the power valve off. I usually go 8. I'll just add 8 to whatever the book calls for. Now, I want to show you a few different things that we've done to it. This is the different baffles that your little vent baffle in your bowl, or it's actually part of your meter block, but it sits in your bowl. And there's a short one like from Quick Fuel. I actually like these better because these tend to close up. They get hot, and the factory ones just tend to start closing down. They won't keep their shape like the Quick Fuel. And the actual Quick Fuel, the gasket holds it in, so it just, and when you're looking at that, guys, do you see how it's pointing down? Yeah, it's pointing down right there. That's the way it goes in, with it pointing downward, because you don't want it pointing up. It'll make it hard to get the bowl on, and it'll close that up. All right, now the next thing I want to show you is the 2 different type of accelerator pumps you'll run into. This is the older style with a little, let me get a little screwdriver here, with a little ball check right here, and it'll move around. It works the same way. You got one hole right here. Can you see that?
Yes, sir.
All right, one hole there feeds it. It'll feed the fuel in, and then the check ball comes back up, and it'll make it come out the front of the bowl. When you start compressing the accelerator pump, it pushes the check valve up to check off the fuel, keep it from going back in the bowl. Now this is the later style with the little orange flapper valve, and it's the better one. It is actually the better one. It's got 2 holes to recover the fuel that you just used. When you squirt the accelerator pump and you let off and it draws the fuel in, it'll come past it so easy. And all you do with this is just stick it in. I always add me just a little bit of lubricant right on where the little knot is there, and just stick it in there, pull it through with a pair of, let me actually go. Let me grab a pair of needle nose.
Right.
And you actually just grab a hold of it and just pull it through like that. Now, what you want to do is take your pair of cutters and clip that off right above the nub. Just don't leave it hanging there. All right, it can actually mess with the float a little bit. Now, let's see. Let's go to the next. All right, next part I want to show you is about the accelerator pump housings. These things warp, and they warp bad. Now, I want to show you what I do to them real quick, and I want to show you how bad they're warped. This is just a typical housing, and I just barely touched it, and you can see where it is. But watch this. Watch. I'm going to show you just how bad these things get. Get your piece of like granite like this or something, and then something that's ultra flat, a plate glass, anything that's very, very flat. Look how much when this is a coarse piece of paper here. This isn't a light piece of sandpaper. It's a coarse. Look how far they're out. If I could actually show you on camera, I'd show you. You can actually see the buckle in it. I had to do these for probably about 3 or 4 minutes, but they'll come out flat. And that's a real problem a lot of times. That's why the pump will be leaking, and it won't even be a bad diaphragm a lot of times. And there's actually 2 types of diaphragms that's most popular. These 2 they got silicone impregnated. You can see it in between the old gasket material It's just glued on there, I guess. It ain't actually in between them, but it's actually one side is the old gasket material, one side is the new rubber. Now I use these if I'm going to use like Q16 fuel, something that's real aggressive, or alcohol, methanol. I'll use the actual silicone type. These are the old-fashioned ones. They work exceptionally good. They're easy to work, and they're easier to work than these. Now, when these first come out, they were all silicone, and it was actually kind of a chore for it to push in and out. You had to have a very strong spring to bring this diaphragm back out. And these are my favorite, the original, because they're so easy to push in and out. All right, so we know if we get this plate flat, usually the bottom of the bowl doesn't warp. I mean, it's very little if any, and you put a new diaphragm in, you're going to be jam up. I mean, you're not going to have no trouble with it. Okay, guys, we did go over this. We know we had the wrong gasket. We had the wrong jets in there. And one other thing is right here, when I first got this throttle plate, it opened up to about that far, wide open. In other words, when these in the front were all the way open, those in the rear were about like so.
Can you hold it up so I can get them a shot of it?
Yeah, I sure will. They were about like, when the fronts were all the way open, the rears were about there.
Oh, okay.
About, 3/4 way open. And all it's due to is this link had never been bent. This link was just straight. And usually they're always too short. You have to bend them. So I put a bend in this link here and kept doing it 2 or 3 times till I got it right where I wanted it, where it ended up being pretty much dead on it. I mean, try to get it as close as you can. All right. Oh, one other thing on this too. Now this is, I'll probably pick up in another video later. But if you ever go, here's the idle circuit. This is transfer slot. Transfer slot, idle circuit. This front and rear. Now, if you go to change one of these over to a 4-corner idle circuit, what you do, they used to Holley put a peg in here they drill it and just put a little peg in there flush and close this circuit off. I just put a little bit of, epoxy like JB Weld. Just mix it up, put you a little bit in there, let it dry, and then just take a file and gently file it smooth where it'll close it off. A dab here, or you put it up here, it's not no certain area, as long as you've got this part separate from this. In other words, it can't travel back around to this one, because you'd never get a true idle mixture adjustment if it was still open. All right, guys, let's go from here now. Oh, there's one other thing on the bowl I want to show them. These bowls, guys, I want to see one. This has got the better picture. I don't know if you can see this, but underneath here, your gasket seals this part of your bowl off, but down below the threads, right about in here, there's a taper to let the actual needle, let me grab a needle valve. Here's a needle valve, needle and seat, and as this screws down on here, this actual rubber O-ring seals where that taper is. There's a taper right in there, right below it.
I could see it when you had it down.
Okay, and sometimes what I'm getting at is that taper won't even be there. It'll just be a hard lip. And you'll be sitting there putting a needle and seat in over and over, and your float's good, and your pressure's good, but it's still flooding. Because it'll cut that actual O-ring right there. It'll cut it right there. So be careful. If you find one that don't want to go in, and you got some lubricant on this O-ring, stop and look at that taper, because it's real important. It only happens every now and then, but it does happen. All right, and we want to make sure our bowls are in good shape. We'll look at our threads, like right here. Look at all our threads before we go too far into it. We'll look at our threads in here, which that's not the bowl. This is the bowl, one of the bowls we're using, but see how the threads look in there? You want to make sure all the threads are good there. You want to make sure the threads are good there. You want to try to look at that lip inside that's tapered. And you want to make sure, now these bowls have been used over and over. You can see the wear on them. This is best used, if you're going to use it again, which is perfectly still usable, use your little paper, cardboard type gaskets on your bowl. Don't try to use the plastic ones, because a lot of times they just aren't smooth enough to seal, and people keep pulling them tighter and tighter, and then they'll pull the threads. Actually, when they came out with these hard plastic washers is when I started having to replace all these threads in here with helicoils, because it pulled the threads right out of them. They keep tightening them. And when you put the little cardboard type paper gasket in there, you just snug it lightly and it's there. Now let's see what else I haven't got to here. I want to show them everything. Always make sure the threads are good in here too, where your actual squirter, your nozzles are. And this is something I've done because this belongs to actually a family member. And I don't do this too often, but I will do them, but they just time consuming. This was actually 1/8 of an inch shy from being the size of the throttle plate. The 650, what they do is they bring it inward to slow down the airflow to actually get it downward, because they have the 750 throttle plate on them. But they've actually this was a full, imagine it sitting in there that far. So I actually cleaned it up with flapper wheels like this right here. And actually I just run it in there and just keep running up and down, and I'll work around and I'll check it, put the plate on it, check it, make sure I'm going right direction. If I have to move the actual bore a little, I'll lean it one side to get it.
Give them a shot of that.
Yeah, now let's see, let me show you what it looks like when you do pretty good on this here. You know, it takes a little. Let me find, these have got the pins in them, so they'll kind of work you.
A little finagling.
Yeah, I'm all hands tonight. Hang on. Let me just set it down. But this is worth the time. If you really want to build something really special, this is worth the time. Sometimes you'll even have to take the pins out of the alignment pins out of the plate or the body to get it exactly where you want it. But imagine it's hanging 1/8 of an inch now inside that bore all the way around. Now look at it. Can you get a good shot there?
Sir.
That's just amazing how much difference. It will make a lot of difference, I assure you. Because when it's tapered down to the butterflies, and the butterflies are bigger, so much bigger than the Venturi, it makes it really, I mean, it will.
And it looks like a slight lip when he opens the butterflies. It's not. It's just
Yeah.
where he cleaned it, the material's a lot shinier.
Exactly. It's a full 1/8 of an inch hanging in the port when I started. I wish I could have got a before shot and let you see it. But this actually gives you see the taper. See how much taper it's got on it? When I opened this up, it made a big difference. Yes, I polished the inside, the actual upper part towards the booster. I polished it lightly, but I worked mainly right here and to keep the taper coming, because that creates a ton of velocity. All right, now let's see. Okay, I think I've covered. Let's see if I've missed anything real quick. We flattened out the pump bodies, get them right. I showed you the difference here, the better difference between the two accelerator pumps. They'll both work. I'm not saying there's nothing wrong with the older style, because it'll still work. And I do like these type of bowl vents better. The jets were way off. This guy's going to think he's driving another vehicle when we get through it, because it had so much wrong with it. I guess that's about the end of this video. The next part will be on assembly. We're going to assemble it up on the next part 3. Guys, please like, comment, and subscribe. We really need the subscriptions. If y'all can subscribe, we'd really appreciate it. And I guess I'll see you on part 3.